So a number of you have requested a head-to-head comparison between the SPL Channel One Mark III channel strip and the mic preamps, the built-in mic pre's in the Neumann MT-48 interface. And I find both to be exceptional solutions for mic preamplification. But let's see if there are any noticeable differences between them.
From the mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov.
So what you're hearing right now is the LaFontaine Clarion. And I love the Clarion's detail, so I'm hoping that allows us to hear any variations with greater resolution. And I have the Clarion going into a mic splitter, which is sending identical signals to both the SPL and the Neumann, so that allows us to switch back and forth as opposed to me recording on one and then recording on the other and possibly having, more variables involved in the equation. So here, let me just show you real quick what's going on. So this is the control panel of the MT-48. And I have the SPL going into line 3, which you're hearing right now. And mic input 2 is the direct input of the mic into the MT-48 with nothing else, right? So it's just the MT-48. And right now you're listening to the SPL Channel One Mark III with pretty much with all the features on, not pretty much, with all the features on. So this is an approximation of how I would use it for work. I've got a little bit of tube saturation. I've got the de-esser on. I've got the transient designer on. Hold on. I got a shot of this. Let me just show you a shot of this real quick. So here, all right, so here it is. Right? So I've got the de-esser, the transient designer. I've got the compression on. I've got the EQ on. So it's full boat right here. So let's switch this over real quick. Okay? So I'm going to take out all the little features. So here goes the EQ, there goes the compression, transient designer, de-esser, and then I'm going to turn the tube saturation down. So this is what just the preamp of the SPL Channel One Mark III sounds like. Now I'll switch over to the MT-48. So this is the MT-48. And right away, they sound extremely similar, except I do hear a little bit of a caramelization in the lower mids, which was designed into the MT-48. So when I was talking to Jonathan, head of sales at Neumann, before the MT-48 came out, one of the biggest things they were so proud about was how they got the preamps to sound really good, but not sterile. So it's designed to have a little bit, like whatever op amp they're using in the preamp chip, is designed to have this little bit of color to it that just adds a little bit of character. And then you go back to the SPL, and the SPL I think is designed to be a little bit more open. It doesn't really have that little dollop of umami that the Neumann has built into it. And the other thing I also hear right away is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's it's a little bit more open on the low mids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count to 8, and I'm going to switch between them. And these differences are very subtle because they're both premium quality, exceptional preamps. So 1, 2. So let's first go with the channel one. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's really subtle, but it's a little bit more flat in the low and low mids, like really where that junction is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it definitely feels a little bit more open. But I think they're extremely close, and they both sound very accurate, and I think they're extremely good options for voiceover. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start to add just a few things here and there. So first things first, let's go back to the Neumann. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in just a little bit of EQ. Now this is like the EQ that I would use for work, and this is just a tiny bump. And I know there are some of you who are like, oh, it sounds better without the EQ, but it's not about what sounds better when the naked sound sounding better. It's not which one sounds better. It's which one is better for voiceover within the context of the work. And having a little tiny bump, what I have here is a tiny bump at 2.7. And I also have a little bit of an air bump at 19, just a dB and a half here and 1.3 dB here. So this is what it sounds like with the EQ, and this is what it sounds like without it. So with the EQ, it just gives it a little bit more pop. It just pushes a little bit more forward, adds a little bit more vibrance to it. So that's why I use that. So let me add the same exact, let me go back here to the, where's my cursor? Oh, here we go. So let me go back here, and I'm going to turn the EQ on the SPL, and I'm going to switch over. So this is the SPL Channel One Mark III with the exact same EQ bump. So just a little touch at 2.7, like a dB, and like a dB or so at 19. So this is with the same amount of EQ, and I think this is where we're going to start to hear some separation. So here's the SPL, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Neumann definitely feels a little bit more compact, right? I don't want to say it's bad. I don't want to say it's different. So I think we're definitely starting to hear something different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So overall, I do feel like the SPL sounds a little bit more open and maybe a little bit more natural due to its analog character. Now, what I'm going to do here also is I'm going to go into the Neumann real quick. Let me go back. Let me go back here. And if I go into the dynamics here, you know, they both inputs have a gate on them because I have to use a gate in this booth. Otherwise, you'll hear my fan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the compression on. So here it is with the compression on, and here it is with the compression off. So the compression is very transparent and very light. You know, I only use just a little kiss of compression. So here again with the compression on. And that's really just to manage the widest dynamic variations, just in case I'm doing commercials or yelling into the mic. But it's really very little, very little. So here it is with that little bit of compression on. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to switch over. And this is the SPL Channel One Mark III with a tiny bit of compression on. And the compression on the SPL Channel One Mark III is just one knob. So I'm really just dialing in a tiny bit of it. So here we go. Let's go back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I feel like that this is a great sound on the Neumann, right? I mean, I have no problem with this sound. But this sound just feels a little bit more in the room. And I think, again, this is analog. This is what you get with analog. Because, you know, here's the thing. The Neumann, right, is a great unit that takes your sound and it turns it into, let me switch over. It turns it into a digital, it goes from A to D, right, before you get into any of the equalization or the compression. So you're taking your organic natural sound going into the preamp as an analog signal, and it's turning it into a digital signal in order to add that EQ and add that compression. Whereas in the SPL Channel One Mark III, you've got it's all analog path. So that's why I feel like it breathes just a little bit better. Now that's the extent of what I can do with the Neumann, right? I mean, anything else I want to add to it, like de-essing, you know, if I want to add transient design or, you know, anything else, or saturation, they all have to come after the fact. And that to me is a little bit problematic. And so let me explain why. So let me go back to the SPL real quick. So here we are again on the Neumann, and here we are on the SPL. And I mean, you know, again, I mean, two great sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add, here, let me show you the camera angle. So you're not looking at the same boring Neumann control panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the de-esser in, because I think that's really important for me, especially. And I apologize if there were any egregious sibilances in the preceding 9 minutes. This is supposed to be a 4-minute demonstration. So, but there's a lot to talk about. So again, here we are in the control panel between the two, and you're listening to the SPL Channel One Mark III. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there is, you know, the sibilance issue that I have with my voice needs to be finessed after the fact with the Neumann. I have to use a plugin. So, you know, and I'm trying very hard not to be so sibilant here. So let's go back. Let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I feel like definitely the de-esser on the SPL. The de-esser on the SPL, it to me is really extremely natural. I like it a lot. So let's actually start to add on. Hold on, let me go back to this. All right, so let's add in the transient designer. So here it is without 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it does fill out that mid-range a little bit more. It smooths it out in a way that I think really works for voiceover. And again, I just have a little bit of the attack dial back just to take the heat off of that initial onset of transients and just a tiny bit of sustain. I just have it basically just cracked past the indent right here. So there you go. It's adding what I feel is quite a bit. So let's go back here. So again, this is the SPL Channel One Mark III. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, there's nothing saying that you can't take that MT-48 signal and manipulate it after the fact. But then again, you are adding more plugins. You're adding more plugins to the chain. So let me do one last thing. I'm going to add the tube saturation onto the SPL. And here it is with the tube saturation up just a little bit. So this is the same setting you heard at the beginning of the video. And that tube saturation really just, again, it adds a little bit more vibrancy, a little bit more depth to it. So what I feel like I'm getting here is a lot of depth. It feels like really warm and it feels very organic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, here, to me is the thing. So what I like about using the transient designer on the SPL in the analog realm is that the SPL is doing everything directly with the raw, unprocessed analog signal. So you're preserving the full detail and nuance of transients before they're digitized. So I feel like overall this ensures, what I feel is a smoother, more natural shaping without the risk of adding digital artifacts or resolution loss. Because, overall, I feel like when you get all these plugins, right? Each plugin, especially when you start stacking them. And let me bounce back and forth between these as I say this. So when you start to add multiple plugins, when you start to stack multiple plugins, each plugin has its own algorithm, right? So, and that can degrade your sound by introducing cumulative artifacts like aliasing, phase shifts, and, harmonic distortion, that you may not want, so those things chip away at the clarity and the depth of your sound. And plugins, can also cause, sometimes you get weird sterile sound out of a plugin, because the nature of the algorithm is just a little bit too precise. Sometimes you get what sounds like an overly polished sound, and that sounds artificial. So I don't like that. Especially when you get excessive EQ adjustments, when you have to really dial in whatever processor you're using. Sometimes it really starts to sound weird. And the thing is, analog gear, right? It basically processes your signal continuously and organically. And plugins really are approximations that, when stacked, really are just basically looking at individual little digital snapshots of your sound and processing each bit and byte separately. So overall, let's go back to here. Let me go back to the original shot. So overall, there is a demo of the SPL, what the SPL does, and what the Neumann MT-48 does. And I mean, again, I have no problem with the MT-48 sound. And that little bit of caramelization in the mic pre, I think, sounds great. But overall, the issue for me comes down to the end result. So when I start to stack all the plugins that I would need to replicate a sound like this, right? Adding in some saturation, adding in a de-esser, adding in that transient designer. These things really kind of affect the sound overall. I'm going to take the compression out of this because I usually use it without compression. So, when you start to, I've found that when I'm using my stack of plugins, there tends to be something that I'm hearing that feels not quite right, that starts to feel artificial. And I think that is the cumulative effect of using several plugins. Now, maybe that's remedied by using one plugin that is a channel strip. But again, you're talking about taking an analog signal and then digitizing it and then running it through several algorithms, as opposed to the organic, wonderful nature of analog, which to me sounds more natural. So, is this all me justifying the price of the Channel One Mark III? Quite possibly. But, ultimately it's all about winning jobs. It's all about connecting with listeners and investing in an analog format, which I think feels definitely more natural, more open. I think it conveys a greater breadth of emotion. And I think it allows you to really kind of focus. Again, like, I'm getting this sound before I'm hitting the DAW. The MT-48, the line input of the MT-48 is just acting as a transparent line in. It's not adding anything to it other than the conversion. So, the fact that I can get this sound before I even hit the DAW, is huge for me. Taking these friction points out of the recording process so that all I have to worry about is my performance. Because the thing that I found with plugins that drives me insane is that I'm never satisfied with the sound. And that was the impetus to really look into a more analog format because, I find myself always tinkering with plugins, just goosing this and that and trying to make it sound a little bit more natural instead of just going with a more natural sounding chain. So what do you think? So I hope this answers your questions about the difference between them. And I mean, the workflow is different in order to get whatever sound you're looking for. You can get a great sound just out of the MT-48 with this stuff on board if you don't need any extra processing, right? But I do need the de-essing. And I find things like the transient designer and I find things like a little bit of saturation to be great weapons in the war for winning hearts and minds in this job. So, but what do you think? What do you think? This is supposed to be a 4-minute video. It's like 19 minutes now. So, but I want to know what you're thinking. All right, so leave a comment. And remember to like and subscribe if you're still watching at this point. So until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov, fading to black.